Hi everybody, my name is PD Pops and welcome to Taxi Wars. Today we're going to be discussing Uber's insurance and the various policies that exist now, potential options, and the ultimate question, is an Uber driver actually really covered? Okay, now it's going to vary in country to country and province to province or state to state. I'm going to be focusing mostly on Ontario. Okay, Ontario is what I know, and basically, at my estimates, about 97% of Uber drivers are not properly insured in Ontario. Okay, it's even higher other places. That's my estimates. I'm going to actually go over how I get that, and this isn't some thing that I'm making up here. These are the facts that I'm going to be presenting to you. Okay? Now, everyone thinks Uber drivers are covered. Basically, no, they're not. Okay? Now, before we get into a proper discussion here, there's a few terms that we need to understand. Okay, there's two that I'm going to be talking about. The first, and when I'm talking about Uber drivers and insurance, the first term you need to understand is when I say app on and app off. Okay, app on is when the Uber app is on, and the Uber driver actually has the app on. And when the app is off, the app is off. They're not logged into the system. Okay? And there's also periods that we look at from an insurance point of view. So there's periods 1, 2, and 3. Now, these only apply for app on time. Period 1 is when you're sitting around waiting for a call. Kind of like I am doing right now. But obviously, I'm not an Uber driver. Okay, so you're sitting around waiting for a call, or you're driving around, you haven't got a call yet, someone, requests an Uber. So that's period 1. Period 2, you have a call, you've accepted it, you're on the way to get that person. Okay, that's period 2. All right, so period 3 is basically when you have somebody in the car, the meter is on, the Uber meter's on in the background, or at the big Uber supercomputer or whatever. Same type of thing as a regular taxi. So when the meter's on, someone's in the car, that's period 3. Okay, now in Ontario, and I'm pretty sure it's the same all over Canada, the current AIG policy, that's who manages Uber's insurance right now. So Uber has a little bit of coverage, and yeah, they do, on the drivers. So anyone who signs up automatically gets this coverage. Now, currently, period 1 and 2 are not covered by Uber whatsoever in Ontario, and as far as I know, the rest of Canada. Okay, it's only period 3 that's covered. Okay, now that's when someone's in the car, and you're on the way, the meter's on basically. So, however, the driver is not covered at all. The passenger is covered for up to $5 million liability. Now, we can't see this policy, so I am an insurance licensed person, but I'm going to make a few assumptions here. They claim that, I've heard, Uber claim this, that a pedestrian that's hit in period 3, would be covered under the $5 million liability. The car is covered as well, so there's a $1,000 deductible on it. That's been stated before. So currently, the Uber policy that exists, it only covers when the meter's on, and it's a very limited policy, and it doesn't protect the driver at all. Now, why are periods 1 and 2 not covered? Doesn't the driver have personal insurance? Well, absolutely. Uber, in fact, won't let you drive unless you have personal insurance. Okay, now the problem with the personal insurance is probably about 90% of the time in Ontario, the very first Uber ride that you take, it voids your insurance. Go ahead, read your policy. Okay, it tells you cannot turn your car into a taxi. If you violate these terms, this policy is void. Okay, now not every, insurance company is going to basically cancel your insurance, which is very bad, but some will, and you don't want to do that. So at least 90% of the time in Ontario, if you drive someone around with your personal insurance is going to be basically void. Okay? And they could even cancel your policy. Now, the only way, or wait, well, I'll go a little bit more on that. Also with Uber's policy, which only covers period 3, it's a secondary, so it's not primary coverage. So basically what that means is, now remember, most Uber drivers lie to their insurance company, or, well, I shouldn't say lie, they just neglect to mention that they're driving for Uber. So because it's a secondary policy, that the one that Uber currently has and provides for their drivers, what that means is if I get into an accident, I have to file the claim, and say it's during period 3 when I am covered and the driver actually knows something about insurance, which a lot don't. The claim has to go through their personal insurance, first of all, because the Uber coverage is secondary. It means it has to be denied here before the Uber one will kick in. It's funny there, because then now the personal insurance company knows that, you're driving for Uber and, they could cancel your policy. And that's basically like getting a DUI, coming back on the road like a year or two later. Okay, you're going to be paying like $8,000 here or something like that just for personal insurance. That's a speculation. It happened to my dad, not because he drove for Uber, but this was like 17 years ago. He got into like 3 accidents right away, so they canceled his insurance, and he was paying like $5,000 a year, and that was back in like the year 2000 or somewhere around there. So it's very serious, that can happen. So basically, the Uber drivers, they're driving around. They're only covered when the meter is on, and they're not covered, just the passenger's covered. The personal insurance is potentially already void, so they have no personal insurance because as soon as the company finds out technically that they can void the policy. It gets even worse. Now, that slight little bit that Uber does actually provide, as of December the 29th, the Uber partner agreement changed. Now, what it states now in Ontario, possibly the rest of Canada, I don't know, any claim can be denied by Uber or AIG. Any claim, period. Okay? So this is pretty incredible. So their personal insurance they don't have, it's void. Uber can deny any claim. These guys are driving around with potentially zero coverage. Okay, this is beyond, my comprehension. And the fact that, they've basically been legalized in Ottawa, and, I don't know what's going to happen in Toronto, but this is just, it's unbelievable. Now, the only way an Uber driver is actually covered in Ontario is if they have the Aviva policy. So they have to have the personal insurance with Aviva, and then they have the rideshare addition on that. Okay, it's the only way you're fully covered, and it covers period 1, 2, and 3. Limitations are you can't go over 20 hours a week, app on time, and you can't do deliveries or parcels or food deliveries or anything like that. I don't know if that voids the policy. I haven't actually read one myself, but the Viva policy is the only one that actually fully covers these guys. Fraud. So, while a couple of these guys might tell their insurance companies, that they're working for Uber, and the insurance company just says, well, if you get into an accident on app on time, then we're not covering you. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate too much, but I will speculate a little bit. At least 90% of these guys are committing obvious insurance fraud in Ontario. Okay, only 3% tops are fully covered, and they're not even fully covered. If they go over 20 hours, boom, they can have that policy void as well. There's a new Intact product coming out. I'm not going to kind of get into that right now, but think about this for a second. There's a company out there that is allowing this to happen, and our governments are actually allowing this company to exist and to continue, and they're changing the rules for these guys. It's unbelievable. This, you get clipped if you don't have personal auto insurance, because like I got hit and run coverage on me, and I forget the exact terms for it, but it's mandatory in Ontario. So if you're walking down the street, you get clipped by a hit and run or an uninsured driver, you're actually covered under your own policy. But let's say, like you're someone who doesn't drive, you're not covered. And eventually it's gonna all wind up, you're gonna be going after that Uber driver. And if you're driving for Uber, you're probably not gonna have a couple $100,000 in assets lying around. So, and in the end, it's the Uber driver that gets hurt the most. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.